The woman in the warehouse was dying. Ethan Hart knew it the moment his flashlight found her crumpled body in the corner, beaten beyond recognition, left to rot like garbage. He was just a mechanic, answering a late-night service call. He should have walked away, called the cops, stayed out of it. But then she opened her swollen eyes and whispered a name that stopped his heart. Isabella Crane, heiress to the most powerful law firm in the state, and someone had tried very hard to make sure she'd never be found. Before we continue, let us know in the comments section where in the world you're tuning in from. We love seeing how far our stories reach. And if this story speaks to you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Ethan's hands were black with grease, knuckles scraped raw from wrestling with a stubborn fuel pump that refused to cooperate. The fluorescent lights in his garage flickered overhead, casting uneven shadows across the concrete floor. It was past midnight, and most of the neighborhood had long since gone to sleep, but Ethan was still here, still working, still pushing through the exhaustion that had become his constant companion. "Dad?" Lily's voice drifted from the doorway, connecting the garage to their small house. She stood there in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes, her brown hair messy from sleep. Ethan straightened up, wiping his hands on an already filthy rag. "Hey, sweetheart, what are you doing up?" "I had a bad dream." She padded closer, her bare feet making soft sounds on the cold floor. "You said you'd be done by 10. Guilt twisted in Ethan's chest. He'd said a lot of things lately that hadn't quite worked out. "I know, baby. I'm sorry. This car just needs a little more work, and then I'll be in, okay? Go back to bed. I promise I'll check on you in 20 minutes. Lily nodded, but the disappointment in her eyes cut deeper than any wrench could. She turned to leave, then paused. "Mom used to say you work too hard." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with everything they'd both lost. Ethan's wife, Sarah, had been gone for a year now, taken by cancer that had moved too fast for any of them to catch their breath. She'd been the heart of their little family, the one who knew how to balance Ethan's intensity with warmth and laughter. Without her, everything felt tilted, off-center. "Yeah," Ethan said softly. "She did say that." Lily disappeared back into the house, and Ethan stood alone in the garage, surrounded by the ghosts of better times. Photos of Sarah still hung on the walls, mixed in with old calendars and parts receipts. He couldn't bring himself to take them down. Some nights, he swore he could still hear her laugh, still smell her perfume mixing with the motor oil. He returned to the fuel pump, but his heart wasn't in it anymore. His phone buzzed on the workbench, and he almost ignored it. Almost. But at this hour, a call usually meant money, and money meant keeping the lights on and food on. Lily's plate. The number was unfamiliar. "Hart Automotive," he answered. "Is this Ethan Hart?" A man's voice, rushed and slightly panicked. "Speaking." "Thank God. I got your number from Mike's auto shop. Said you do emergency repairs. I've got a situation at one of my properties, an old warehouse off Route 6. My company car broke down there during an inspection, and I need someone who can come out right now. I'll pay double your usual rate." Ethan hesitated. Route 6 was on the outskirts of town, not exactly a safe area, especially at this hour, but double rate meant he could maybe take Lily to that movie she'd been asking about, maybe buy her those new shoes she needed. "What kind of car?" Ethan asked. "Black Mercedes, 2018. Won't start." "Look, I know it's late, but I'm flying out for business first thing in the morning, and I need that car working. Can you do it or not? Text me the exact address. I'll be there in 30. Ethan ended the call and looked back at the house. Lily would be fine for an hour, maybe less. He'd done this before, left her sleeping while he handled a quick job. She was 8 now, responsible for her age. And Mrs. Chen next door had a key if anything went wrong. He grabbed his toolkit and headed for his truck, telling himself this was just another job, just another way to keep their heads above water. He had no idea he was driving towards something that would change everything. The warehouse loomed against the night sky like a skeletal giant, all rusted metal and broken windows. Ethan's headlights swept across the crumbling parking lot as he pulled in, illuminating weeds pushing through cracked asphalt and a chain-link fence that had long since given up trying to keep people out. The place felt wrong. That was Ethan's first real thought as he killed the engine and sat in the darkness. No Mercedes, no client waiting. Just an empty lot, and a building that looked like it hadn't seen legitimate business in a decade. His phone buzzed. Text from the same number. Inside. Back section. Car wouldn't start, so I pushed it in out of sight. Side door is open. Ethan grabbed his flashlight and toolkit, his instincts screaming at him to leave. But he'd driven all the way out here, and double rate was double rate. He'd take a quick look, and if something felt off, he'd leave. The side door creaked open on rusted hinges. Inside, the warehouse was a maze of shadows and forgotten equipment. Old machinery squatted in corners like sleeping monsters. Broken pallets were stacked haphazardly. The air smelled of rust, mold, and something else, something metallic that made Ethan's stomach tighten. "Hello?" His voice echoed in the vast space. "Anyone here?" Nothing. No response. No Mercedes. No panicked client. Ethan's hand tightened on his flashlight. This was a setup. Had to be. He'd been lured here, probably to be mugged or worse. He turned to leave. That's when he heard it. A sound so faint he almost missed it. A soft, wet breathing, like someone trying desperately to pull air through damaged lungs. Ethan froze. "Hello?" The breathing came again, from somewhere deeper in the warehouse. Every rational part of his brain told him to run, to get back in his truck and call the police from a safe distance. But Sarah's voice echoed in his memory. Something she'd said to him once after he'd stopped to help a stranded motorist in the rain. "That's who you are, Ethan. You're the guy who helps." He moved toward the sound, his flashlight beam cutting through the darkness, past broken conveyor belts, around a pile of discarded tires, into the back corner where the shadows were thickest. And then he saw her. She was crumpled against the wall like a discarded doll, her body twisted at angles that made Ethan's chest constrict. Her clothes were torn, stained with blood that looked black in the flashlight's beam. Bruises covered every visible inch of skin, some fresh and angry purple, others fading to yellow and green. Her face was swollen almost beyond recognition, one eye completely shut, her lips split and still bleeding. Jesus Christ. Ethan dropped to his knees beside her, his toolkit clattering to the floor. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" Her one good eye cracked open, struggling to focus. She tried to speak, but only a weak, rattling sound emerged. Ethan's hands shook as he pulled out his phone, dialing 911. His mind was racing, trying to process what he was seeing. This wasn't an accident. This was deliberate. Someone had beaten this woman within an inch of her life and left her here to die. 911, what's your emergency? I need an ambulance. Abandoned warehouse off Route 6, near the old industrial park. There's a woman here. She's been severely beaten, barely conscious. Please hurry. Stay on the line, sir. Help is on the way. Can you tell me more about her condition? Ethan's free hand hovered over the woman, afraid to touch her, afraid of causing more damage. Multiple contusions. Possible. Broken bones. She's breathing, but it sounds bad. She needs help now. The ambulance is 5 minutes out. Sir, do not move her unless there's immediate danger. But Ethan wasn't listening anymore. The woman's good eye had found his face, and there was something in that gaze, a desperate clarity that cut through her pain. Her lips moved, and Ethan leaned closer. Don't. Let them. Her voice was barely a whisper, each word clearly agony. Find me. Shh. Don't talk. Help is coming. You're going to be okay. Her hand, trembling and broken, reached up to grip his shirt with surprising strength. Please, they'll kill me. And then her eye rolled back, and she went limp in his arms. The hospital's fluorescent lights were too bright, too sterile, turning everything into sharp edges and clinical white. Ethan sat in a plastic chair outside the ICU, still wearing his grease-stained work clothes, dried blood on his hands from where he'd cradled the woman during the ambulance ride. He'd refused to leave her side, some instinct telling him that if he walked away now, something terrible would happen. A doctor emerged from behind the double doors, pulling off latex gloves. She was middle-aged, with tired eyes that had seen too much. Are you family? No. I'm the one who found her. How is she? The doctor's expression gave nothing away. Critical but stable. 3 broken ribs, fractured cheekbone, severe internal bruising, and a concussion. Whoever did this to her knew what they were doing. They avoided hitting anything immediately fatal, but they wanted her to suffer. Ethan's stomach turned. Will she make it? The next 48 hours are crucial. We've done what we can. Now it's up to her. The doctor paused, studying him. The police will want to talk to you, and we need to identify her. She had no ID, no phone, nothing. She said something to me, Ethan said quietly, before she passed out. She said, "Don't let them find me." She said they'd kill her. The doctor's face tightened. I'll make sure security is aware. In the meantime, you should go home. Get some rest. There's nothing more you can do here. But Ethan couldn't leave. He thought of Lily, knew he should be home before she woke up. But something kept him rooted to that uncomfortable chair. Sarah would have understood. She'd always said he had too big a heart for his own good. He called Mrs. Chen, asked her to check on Lily, make her breakfast, get her to school. Mrs. Chen asked no questions, bless her, just said she'd handle it and to take care of whatever he needed to take care of. The police came an hour later, 2 detectives who asked the same questions 3 different ways. No, he didn't know her. No, he didn't see anyone else at the warehouse. No, he had no idea why someone would call him out there. Yes, it felt like a setup, but for what purpose, he couldn't say. They took his statement, his contact information, and left with promises to follow up. Ethan got the the impression they'd file this away as another case in a city that had too many cases and not enough resources. Morning bled into afternoon. Ethan dozed in the chair, his body protesting every uncomfortable position. Nurses came and went. Machines beeped their steady rhythms. And behind those ICU doors, the woman fought for her life. It was nearly 6 p.m. when the doctor found him again. She's awake. Briefly, she's asking for you. Ethan followed her through the double doors, past rooms filled with other people's tragedies, to a private room at the end of the hall. The woman lay in the bed, almost unrecognizable beneath the bandages and tubes. But her eyes were open, both of them now, though one was still badly swollen. "I'll give you a few minutes," the doctor said, and closed the door behind her. Ethan approached the bed slowly, as if sudden movement might shatter this fragile moment. "Hey, you're awake." Her voice was hoarse, damaged. "You stayed. Couldn't really leave without knowing you were okay." He pulled a chair close to the bed. "I'm Ethan, by the way. Ethan Hart. Isabella." Each word clearly cost her. Each word. Isabella Crane. The name hit Ethan like a physical blow. Isabella Crane. The Isabella Crane. He'd seen her face in the news, on billboards, in magazine articles about successful young lawyers. The heiress to Crane Legal Group, one of the largest law firms in the state. Her father, Victor Crane, was practically legal royalty. Ethan struggled to process this. "Everyone's been looking for you. You've been missing for almost a week." Something flickered in Isabella's eyes. Fear, raw and primal. "No, you can't tell anyone. Please, Isabella, your family. My family did this." The words came out flat, certain. "My father, my stepmother, they did this to me." Ethan sat back, his mind reeling. That's not possible. Your father's been on the news, begging for information about you. He's offering a $500,000 reward." A bitter sound escaped Isabella's damaged throat, something that might have been a laugh if it hadn't been so painful. "Of course he is. Can't look guilty if you're the grieving father, can you? Why would they do this?" Isabella's working hand clenched the bedsheet. "Because I found out what they were doing. Money laundering through the firm, bribing judges. They've turned everything my grandfather built into a criminal enterprise, and I was going to expose them." She paused, struggling for breath. "They couldn't let that happen. So they tried to kill you." "Not tried. They think they succeeded. They had me tortured for 3 days, trying to find out who else I'd told, what evidence I had. When I wouldn't break, they decided I was too dangerous to keep alive. They dumped me in that warehouse like garbage." Ethan's fists clenched. He'd seen evil in his life, but this was different. This was cold, calculated, family destroying family for money and power. "We need to go to the police." "With what? My word against theirs? They own half the cops in this city, and the ones they don't own, they can buy." Isabella's eyes locked onto his. "I need time. Time to heal. Time to gather real evidence. Time to figure out who I can actually trust. If word gets out that I'm alive, they'll come for me, and next time they'll make sure to finish the job. So what are you asking me to do? Hide me, just for a little while, until I'm strong enough to fight back. Ethan stood up, pacing the small room. This was insane. He had a daughter to think about, a business to run, a life that was already complicated enough without harboring a fugitive heiress from one of the most powerful families in the state. But then he looked at Isabella, really looked at her. Beneath the bruises and bandages, he saw the same thing he'd seen in that warehouse, a desperate will to survive, a strength that refused to be broken. She reminded him of Sarah, that same fierce determination in the face of impossible odds. How long? He asked. 2 weeks, maybe 3, just until I can walk without help, until I can think clearly enough to plan my next move. And if they find you at my house, then we both die. Isabella said it without drama, just stating a fact. I won't lie to you about the risk, Ethan. These people are dangerous. They have resources, connections, and no conscience. If you help me, you're putting yourself and anyone you care about in danger. Ethan thought of Lily, of her trusting eyes and her mother's smile. He thought of the life they'd built together, small and fragile, but theirs. He could say no right now, walk away, let Isabella Crane become someone else's problem. But he also thought of the woman in that warehouse, left to die alone in the dark. He thought of what Sarah would say if she were here, and he knew with absolute certainty that there was only one choice he could live with. Okay, he said, but we do this my way. No contact with anyone from your old life, no phones, no internet, nothing that could lead them to you. You follow my rules, or this doesn't work. For the first time since waking, something like hope flickered in Isabella's eyes. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. We still have to get you out of here without anyone noticing. That proved easier than expected. The hospital was understaffed and overworked, and Isabella Crane had been admitted as Jane Doe. Ethan signed her out against medical advice, claiming she was his sister and that he'd arranged for private care at home. The doctor protested, but there was nothing legally she could do to stop them. Getting Isabella to his truck required a wheelchair and most of Ethan's strength. Every movement caused her visible pain, but she gritted her teeth and endured. In the parking garage, Ethan helped her into the passenger seat as gently as he could. We need to make a stop first, Isabella said as he started the engine. There's a storage unit. Everything I need is there. How do you even have a storage unit if you've been missing? I'm not stupid, Ethan. I knew what my family was capable of. I started preparing months ago, setting up contingencies. The storage unit is under a fake name, paid for a year in advance. Inside is a laptop with encrypted files, backup drives, documents, everything I need to bring them down. The storage facility was 20 minutes outside of town, anonymous collection of orange metal boxes surrounded by chain link fence. Isabella directed him to Unit 247, gave him a code. Inside, he found exactly what she'd described, plus a go-bag with cash, prepaid phones, and a handgun. Ethan stared at the gun. You really thought this through? I had to. When you realize your own family wants you dead, you either prepare or you die. They loaded everything into the truck and drove to Ethan's house in silence. It was almost 8 p.m. by the time they pulled into his driveway. Lily would be home from Mrs. Chen's by now, probably worried about where her father had been all day. I have a daughter, Ethan said, killing the engine. Lily, she's 8. She's been through enough losing her mother. I need you to understand that if this puts her in danger, if I even suspect your family is getting close, we're going to the police. I don't care about evidence or who they own. Her safety comes first. I understand, Isabella said. And Ethan, I meant what I said. If it comes to that, if they find me here, you take your daughter and run. Don't try to fight them, just run. They helped each other out of the truck, Isabella leaning heavily on Ethan as they made their way to the front door. Inside, Lily sat on the couch watching cartoons, but she jumped up when she saw them. Dad, where have you been, Mrs. Chen said you had an emergency but wouldn't tell me what, and I've been worried. And she stopped, her eyes going wide as she took in Isabella's battered appearance. Who's that? What happened to her? Ethan knelt down to Lily's level. keeping his voice calm. "This is Isabella. She's a friend who needs our help. She was in an accident, and she's going to stay with us for a little while until she gets better. Can you do me a favor and be extra kind to her?" Lily's face, so much like Sarah's, softened with instant compassion. "Does it hurt really bad?" Isabella managed a small smile despite her split lip. "Pretty bad, yeah, but your dad saved my life, so I'm going to be okay. My dad's really good at saving things," Lily said seriously. "He saved a bird once with a broken wing. We kept it in a box until it could fly again. Are you like the bird?" "Yeah," Isabella said softly. "I guess I am." Ethan set Isabella up in the guest room, which hadn't been used since Sarah's mother visited 2 years ago. It was small but clean, with a window overlooking the backyard. He helped her into bed, arranged pillows to support her broken ribs, brought water and the pain medication the hospital had sent her home with. "Get some rest," he said. "We'll figure out the next steps tomorrow." But as he turned to leave, Isabella caught his hand. "Ethan, why are you doing this? You don't know me. You owe me nothing." He thought about how to answer, about all the complicated reasons and the simple truth underneath them all. "Because someone left you in that warehouse to die alone, and I couldn't live with myself if I walked away from that." "Your wife," Isabella said quietly. "The one in all those photos in your garage. She must have been something special. She was." Ethan's throat tightened. "She taught me that the right thing isn't always the easy thing, and she'd never forgive me if I didn't help you." That night, after Lily was asleep, Ethan sat in his garage and tried to process everything that had happened in the last 24 hours. He'd gone from a simple mechanic trying to survive to a man harboring a fugitive heiress from one of the most powerful families in the state. His life had become dangerous and complicated in ways he couldn't have imagined. But when he closed his eyes, he didn't see the danger. He saw Isabella's face in that warehouse, her desperate will to survive. He saw Lily's compassion when she'd looked at their broken guest. He saw Sarah's smile telling him he'd done the right thing. And for the first time in a year, Ethan Hart felt like he was living for something more than just getting through the day. In the guest room, Isabella lay awake despite the pain medication, staring at the ceiling. She'd survived the impossible, escaped from people who wanted her dead. But survival was just the beginning. Now came the hard part, gathering her strength, securing her evidence, and finding a way to destroy the people who'd destroyed her. Her father thought she was dead. Her stepmother thought she'd won. They had no idea that Isabella Crane was about to become their worst nightmare. But first, she had to heal, and she had to make sure that the kind mechanic and his sweet daughter didn't pay the price for her war. Outside, the night was quiet, but storms were coming, and everyone in that small house was about to be swept up in them. The first 3 days passed in a careful routine. Ethan took Lily to school, worked half days at the garage, and came home to check on Isabella. She slept most of the time, her body desperately trying to heal from the trauma it had endured. When she was awake, she was quiet, watching everything with sharp eyes that missed nothing. On the 4th day, everything changed. Ethan was in the kitchen making lunch when Isabella appeared in the doorway, leaning heavily on the wall but standing on her own. The swelling in her face had gone down enough that he could see her features clearly now. Even battered and bruised, there was something striking about her, a strength that radiated from her core. "You shouldn't be up," Ethan said, moving to help her. "I've been lying down for 4 days. I need to move or I'll go crazy." She made her way to the kitchen table, each step clearly painful but determined. "Besides, we need to talk." Ethan set a sandwich in front of her. "About what?" "About the fact that my family is going to figure out I'm alive eventually, and when they do, they're going to come looking." Isabella took a small bite, wincing as it pulled at her split lip. "I've been thinking about our next move. I need to access the files in that laptop, start building an airtight case, but I also need to know who I can trust at the DA's office. One wrong move and we're both dead." "So, what's the plan?" "There's a prosecutor, Rebecca Walsh. She worked with my grandfather before he died. She's honest, clean, and she hates corruption. If I can get the evidence to her, she'll know what to do with it." Ethan sat down across from her. "And how do you know your family hasn't already gotten to her?" "I don't. That's the problem." Isabella pushed the sandwich away, her appetite clearly gone. "Everything is a risk," Now, every phone call, every email, every person we contact could be the one that leads them to us. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway made them both freeze. Ethan moved to the window, his heart hammering. A black SUV sat in his driveway, and two men in expensive suits were getting out. "Isabella," Ethan said quietly, "we have company." She was beside him in seconds, looking past the curtain. Her face went white. "That's Marcus Chen. He's my father's head of security. If he's here, they know. Bedroom, now. Don't make a sound." Isabella moved as quickly as her injuries allowed, disappearing down the hall. Ethan took a deep breath, wiped his palms on his jeans, and opened the front door before the men could knock. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" The man Isabella had identified as Marcus Chen smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He was tall, powerfully built, with the kind of face that had seen violence and hadn't flinched. "Ethan Hart, we're looking for someone. A woman. We have reason to believe she might have come through this area recently. Lots of women come through this area. You'll have to be more specific." Chen pulled out a photo, one of Isabella at some charity gala, beautiful and smiling in an evening gown. It was jarring to reconcile that image with the broken woman hiding in his guest room. Isabella Crane. She's been missing for over a week. Her family is very worried about her. "Seen it on the news," Ethan said, keeping his voice casual. "Terrible thing, but I haven't seen her." "Why would you think she'd be here?" "We're checking all the properties in this area. You see, we have evidence that suggests she might have been brought to a hospital in this region. And you, Mr. Hart, signed out a Jane Doe patient from that hospital 4 days ago. A patient matching Isabella's description." Ethan's blood ran cold, but he kept his expression neutral. "That was my cousin. She had a car accident. I brought her home to recover." "Your cousin?" Chen's smile widened. "Mind if we see her?" "Actually, I do mind. She's sleeping and she's been through a trauma. Unless you have a warrant, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." The second man, silent until now, took a step forward. He was younger, meaner looking, with dead eyes that promised violence. "Mr. Hart, you don't understand the situation. If you're hiding Isabella Crane, you're interfering in a family matter. The Cranes take care of their own. They just want to bring their daughter home safe. And I want you off my property." Chen held up a hand, stopping his companion. "There's no need for hostility. The Crane family is offering a substantial reward for information leading to Isabella's safe return. $500,000, Mr. Hart. That's a lot of money for a man in your position. Single father, struggling business, bills piling up. That kind of money could change your life." For just a moment, Ethan let himself imagine it. $500,000. Lily's college fund. Secured. The garage's debts paid off. No more late nights working himself to exhaustion. All he had to do was tell them Isabella was in the guest room. Then he thought of Isabella's words in the hospital. "My family did this." He thought of her broken body in that warehouse. And he thought of what Sarah would say if she knew he'd even considered taking blood money. "I don't know where Isabella Crane is," Ethan said firmly. "And even if I did, I wouldn't tell you. Now get off my property before I call the police." Chen's smile finally faded. "You're making a mistake, Mr. Hart. The Cranes are powerful people. They don't forget when someone gets in their way." "Is that a threat?" "It's a reality check. You have a daughter, don't you?" "Lily, age 8, attends Franklin Elementary. It would be terrible if something happened to her because her father made poor choices." Something dark and primal surged in Ethan's chest. He stepped forward, getting in Chen's face. "You listen to me very carefully. You go anywhere near my daughter, you even think about her, and I will end you. I don't care who you work for or how much money they have. Touch her, and I'll make you regret being born." Chen studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "We'll be in touch, Mr. Hart. Think about what I said. $500,000. All you have to do is make a phone call." They walked back to their SUV and drove away. Ethan stood in the doorway until they disappeared around the corner, his hands shaking with adrenaline and rage. Isabella appeared from the bedroom. They threatened Lily. "Yeah, Ethan, you need to take her and leave. Right now. I'll disappear. Go somewhere else. And no." Ethan turned to face her. "Running doesn't solve this. They'll keep looking, Keep threatening, keep destroying lives until they get what they want. The only way to stop this is to take them down. So that's what we're going to do. You don't know what you're saying. These people beat you almost to death and left you to rot. Then they threatened my daughter. I'm done being scared of them." He moved to the table where Isabella's laptop sat. "You said you have evidence. Let's use it." For the next 6 hours they worked. Isabella walked Ethan through the encrypted files, showing him bank records, emails, recorded phone conversations. The evidence was damning. Victor Crane and his wife, Melissa, had been systematically looting the law firm, bribing judges, laundering money through offshore accounts. They'd ruined lives, destroyed evidence, and perverted justice, all while presenting themselves as pillars of the legal community. "This is enough to put them away for life," Ethan said, scrolling through the files. "Why didn't you go to the authorities sooner?" "Because I didn't know who to trust. My father has connections everywhere. Judges, prosecutors, police chiefs. I needed to be absolutely certain about who I was giving this to, or it would just disappear and I'd disappear with it." Isabella rubbed her eyes, exhaustion pulling at her. "Rebecca Walsh is our best shot. She's too high profile to easily silence, and she has a reputation for going after powerful people. So we contact her. It's not that simple. We can't just call her office. If my father has someone watching her, they'll intercept any message. We need to meet her in person, somewhere public enough that my family can't make a move, but private enough to show her the evidence." Ethan thought for a moment. "The courthouse. She'd be there anyway. Lots of people around. Security cameras everywhere. Your father can't touch us in front of that many witnesses. It's risky. Everything about this is risky. But sitting here waiting for them to find us is riskier." They spent the rest of the evening planning. Isabella would make contact with Rebecca Walsh through an encrypted email, requesting an emergency meeting. They'd bring copies of the evidence on multiple flash drives. And if anything went wrong, Ethan had already arranged for Mrs. Chen to pick Lily up from school and take her to her sister's house 3 states away. That night, after Isabella had gone to bed, Ethan checked on Lily. She was asleep, clutching the stuffed rabbit Sarah had given her for her 5th birthday. She looked so peaceful, so innocent. Ethan sat on the edge of her bed, smoothing her hair back from her forehead. "I'm going to keep you safe, baby," he whispered. "Whatever it takes." The meeting was set for 2 days later, early morning at the courthouse steps. Those 2 days crawled by with agonizing slowness. Every car that passed the house made Ethan tense. Every phone call could be the one that changed everything. Isabella grew stronger, more mobile, but the fear never left her eyes. On the morning of the meeting, Ethan made Lily her favorite breakfast, pancakes with chocolate chips. She chatted about a project at school, about her friend Emma's upcoming birthday party, about everything except the tension radiating from her father. "Dad," she paused mid-bite, "is everything okay? You seem worried." Ethan forced a smile. "Everything's fine, sweetheart. Just some grown-up stuff I have to deal with. Nothing for you to worry about." "Is it about Isabella? Is she going to be okay?" "Yeah, baby. She's going to be fine. We all are." He dropped Lily at school, hugging her tighter and longer than usual. She squirmed in his embrace, giggling. "Dad, you're being weird." "I love you, Lily. Remember that, okay? No matter what happens, I love you more than anything in this world." "I love you too, Dad. Even when you're being super weird." He watched her run into the school building, her backpack bouncing, and prayed he'd see her again tonight. Isabella was waiting in the truck when he returned, dressed in clothes from her go-bag, a baseball cap pulled low over her still healing face. "Ready?" "As I'll ever be." The drive to the courthouse took 20 minutes. They parked 2 blocks away, both of them scanning the area for any sign of Victor Crane's people. The morning was crisp, business people and lawyers streaming into the building for the day's proceedings. Rebecca Walsh was waiting at the top of the courthouse steps, exactly where Isabella had specified. She was in her 50s, with steel-gray hair and sharp eyes that had seen every lie and excuse the legal system had to offer. When she saw Isabella approaching, her face registered shock, then concern. "Isabella Crane," she said quietly, "the whole state thinks you're dead. They're supposed to." Isabella glanced around nervously. "Did anyone see you come here? Anyone following you? I've been a prosecutor for 30 years. I know how to spot a tail. Rebecca's eyes moved to Ethan. And you are? Ethan Hart. I'm the one who found her. Rebecca nodded slowly. Your email said you have evidence about Victor Crane. I'm listening. Isabella pulled out a flash drive. Everything's on here. Bank records, emails, recordings. Proof that my father and stepmother have been using Crane Legal Group as a criminal enterprise. Money laundering, bribery, witness tampering, obstruction of justice. It's all there. Rebecca took the drive, her expression unreadable. These are serious accusations against a very powerful man. They're true, every word. Isabella's voice shook with intensity. My father tried to have me killed because I found out what he was doing. He had me tortured for 3 days, then dumped in a warehouse to die. If Ethan hadn't found me, I'd be dead right now. And you have proof of this as well. Medical records from the hospital, photos of my injuries, and my testimony. Rebecca was quiet for a long moment, turning the flash drive over in her hands. If this evidence is as solid as you say, we can bring charges. But Isabella, you need to understand what you're starting. Your father won't go quietly. He'll use every resource, every connection, every trick in the book to destroy this case and everyone involved in it. I know, but I can't let him keep hurting people. My grandfather built that firm to help people, to stand for justice. My father turned it into a weapon. It has to stop. All right. Rebecca pocketed the flash drive. I'll review this today. If it's as strong as you claim, I'll bring it to the grand jury by the end of the week. In the meantime, you need to stay somewhere safe. Do you have Rebecca, Walsh? They all turned. Victor Crane was climbing the courthouse steps, flanked by Marcus Chen and 3 other men in suits. He looked every inch the powerful attorney, his silver hair perfectly styled, his custom suit immaculate, but there was murder in his eyes. Dad, Isabella said, and Ethan heard the fear in her voice. Isabella. Victor's voice was warm, concerned, the perfect performance of a relieved father. People on the steps were starting to notice, to pull out phones. Thank God you're alive. We've been so worried. When you disappeared, we thought the worst. Stay away from me. Darling, you're clearly not well. You need medical attention, psychiatric help. Come home with me, and we'll get you the care you need. Rebecca stepped forward, her prosecutor's instincts kicking in. Mr. Crane, your daughter has made serious allegations against you. I suggest you retain counsel. Victor's mask slipped for just a second, cold rage flashing across his face. I don't know what lies she's been telling you, Miss Walsh, but my daughter has been through a terrible trauma. She's confused, possibly suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. This man, he pointed at Ethan, has been holding her against her will. That's not true, Ethan said. Isn't it? You signed her out of the hospital under false pretenses. You've been hiding her for days. Sounds like kidnapping to me. More people were gathering now, phones out, recording everything. Victor was playing to the crowd, the concerned father, the respected attorney, the victim of false accusations. But Isabella had spent her whole life watching her father manipulate people. She knew his playbook, and she was done being afraid. You tried to kill me, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. You and Melissa had me beaten, tortured, and left for dead because I found proof of your crimes. You've been stealing from the firm, bribing judges, perverting justice. And now Miss Walsh has all the evidence she needs to prosecute you. Victor's face went purple with rage. You ungrateful little. Mr. Crane, Rebecca interrupted. I strongly suggest you stop talking. Anything you say right now can and will be used against you. For a moment, Ethan thought Victor might try something violent right there on the courthouse steps. Chen's hand moved inside his jacket, and Ethan tensed, ready to push Isabella behind him. But Victor was too smart for that. Too many witnesses, too many cameras. Instead, he smiled, cold and sharp as a knife. You've made your choice, Isabella. Just remember, choices have consequences. He turned and walked away, his entourage following. But the threat hung in the air, heavy and real. Rebecca put a hand on Isabella's shoulder. That was incredibly brave and incredibly stupid. You just declared war on one of the most powerful men in the state. I know. Isabella was shaking, but she stood tall, Can you protect us? I can expedite the case, bring charges as quickly as possible. Once he's indicted, it becomes much harder for him to act against you. But until then..." Rebecca looked at Ethan. "Where are you staying?" "My house. But they know where it is. Then you need to move. Today. I know a safe house, off the books, used for witnesses in high-profile cases. I'll arrange it." The next few hours were a blur. Rebecca made calls, pulled strings, arranged protection. By afternoon, Ethan and Isabella were being moved to a nondescript house in a suburb an hour outside the city. 2 U.S. Marshals were assigned to watch them until the indictment came through. Lily was brought from school by Mrs. Chen, confused and scared by the sudden change. Ethan held her close, trying to explain without terrifying her. "We're going on a little trip, baby. Just for a few days. An adventure. Because of the bad men who hurt Isabella?" Ethan's throat tightened. "Yeah, because of them. But we're going to be safe. I promise." 3 days later, Rebecca Walsh called. "We have the indictment. Victor Crane and Melissa Crane are being charged with racketeering, money laundering, bribery, conspiracy, and attempted murder. The evidence you provided is ironclad. They're done." The arrest was national news. Video of Victor Crane being led out of his office in handcuffs went viral. The legal community was in shock. Crane Legal Group's clients fled in droves. Everything Victor had built collapsed in a matter of hours. Through it all, Isabella watched from the safe house, her face unreadable. Ethan sat beside her as they watched the news coverage. "How do you feel?" he asked. "I don't know. Relieved. Sad. Angry. He was my father, you know. Even after everything, part of me still." She trailed off, shaking her head. "He chose greed and power over his own daughter. I'll never understand that. Some people can't be understood. They can only be stopped." Isabella turned to look at him. Really look at him. "You saved my life, Ethan. Not just in that warehouse. You gave me a safe place to heal, risked everything to help me fight back. I'll never be able to repay that. You don't have to repay anything. We did what needed to be done." "Still," she reached out, taking his hand. "Thank you for everything." The trial took 6 months. Ethan testified about finding Isabella, about Chen's threats, about everything he'd witnessed. Isabella took the stand and told her story, every painful detail. The jury deliberated for 2 days before coming back with guilty verdicts. On all counts, Victor Crane was sentenced to 30 years in federal prison. Melissa Crane got 25. Chen and the others who'd carried out the attack received sentences ranging from 15 to 20 years. Justice was served. Ethan stood on the courthouse steps after the sentencing, breathing in the cool autumn air. It was over. Finally, truly over. He could take Lily home, back to their normal life. Isabella would rebuild Crane Legal Group, restore her grandfather's legacy. Everything would go back to normal, except nothing felt normal anymore. Isabella found him on those same steps where they'd confronted her father all those months ago. She looked different now, fully healed, strong and confident in a way that made his chest tighten. "So," she said, "this is it. The end of the story." "Yeah, I guess it is." "Ethan, I've been thinking. Crane Legal Group needs a complete overhaul. New leadership, new direction, a return to what my grandfather intended. I'm going to run it, make it into something worth being proud of. You'll be great at it. I will. But I'm going to need help. Someone I trust, someone who understands what really matters." She smiled, nervous in a way he'd never seen her before. "How do you feel about becoming the firm's operations director? Good salary, benefits, stable hours so you can spend time with Lily, and you'd be working with me." Ethan stared at her. "Isabella, I'm a mechanic. I don't know anything about running a law firm. You know about integrity. You know about standing up for what's right even when it's hard. That's what I need. Everything else can be learned." She took a step closer. "Besides, these past months, working together, watching you with Lily, seeing how you handle pressure. Ethan, I don't want this to be the end. Of us, I mean." His heart hammered in his chest. "Us? I know it's complicated. I know we come from different worlds, and this whole thing started with trauma and violence. But somewhere along the way, in between the fear And the fighting. I fell for your kindness, your strength, your terrible dad jokes that make Lily groan. I fell for the man who stayed with a stranger in the hospital, who risked everything to do the right thing. Ethan thought of Sarah, of the life they'd had and the life he'd lost. He thought he'd never feel this way again, this flutter of possibility, this hope for something new. Sarah always said I had too big a heart, he said quietly. She'd probably love you. Is that a yes? It's a let's see where this goes. Slow, careful, with Lily's feelings at the center of everything. Isabella's smile could have lit up the city. I can work with that. 6 months later, Ethan stood in his new office at Crane Legal Group, looking out over the city. It still felt surreal sometimes, how much his life had changed. But then Lily would burst in after school, excited to tell him about her day, and Isabella would follow with coffee and that smile that made everything feel right. And he'd remember that sometimes life gives you second chances. He'd lost Sarah, and that grief would always be part of him. But he'd also found Isabella, found a new purpose, found a way forward that honored Sarah's memory while building something new. The woman he'd found broken in that warehouse was now his partner in every sense. They'd both been given a second chance at life, and they were determined not to waste it. Outside, the city hummed with life. Somewhere out there, people were struggling, fighting their own battles, searching for their own second chances. And if they were lucky, maybe they'd find someone like Ethan Hart, someone who would stay when others would walk away, someone who would fight when others would surrender, because that's what heroes do. They show up, they stay, they help, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. And if you've made it this far in our story, thank you for being here with us through every twist and turn. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button and drop a comment below telling us what you thought. And if you want more stories like this, stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things, make sure to subscribe to Humanity Stories. We've got more incredible journeys to share with you. Because everyone deserves a second chance. Everyone deserves to be found when they're lost. And everyone deserves a happy ending.